Guys, welcome to another edition of Warweek Radio on the YouTube platform. I want to welcome everyone to this fine Wednesday afternoon. Guys, my name is Joseph Herron, and this show is being brought to you courtesy of FightSaga.com. Guys, for all latest boxing news, please go visit FightSaga.com on the daily, linking in all major boxing news wires in one centralized hub, plus all of the exclusive content from Mr. Lee Cleveland, Joseph Herron, as well as our first guest, the one and only Mr. KingRy Bradshaw. KingRy, how are you doing today, brother?
Man, y'all know how I do, Mr. 214, Senior 214, Senior 214. Right here with my guy, Joseph Herron, Warweek Radio. Man, let's get it.
I like your Spanglish, man. Well, I tell you what, if you could...
You don't know, I represent the 214 for real. Y'all see how we coming with them Cowboys?
You know what, man? I bleed blue, brother, but that's for a different show and a different topic, man. Dude, I could talk about Cowboys all day, including what's coming up in the draft. Oh, that's for another episode, though, great. But I tell you what, guys, if you can see the ticker, you can see what our first topic is going to be, right? It's Manny Pacquiao versus Terence Crawford falling apart. It was announced this past Saturday that the $40 million site fee that Top Rank and Manny Pacquiao were trying to get secure from the United Arab Emirates, right? From a benefactor in the UAE, apparently funding fell through. And so that fight is all but dead because that was the only way Manny Pacquiao was going to step in the ring with Terence Crawford, is if he were to get a $40 million site fee and guarantee. That's ridiculous. I mean, that is, have you ever heard of a site fee in the States coming close to equating or equaling $40 million, correct?
No.
Have you ever heard of that?
I
Are you frozen, dude?
No. Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
No, I ain't never heard of that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's absurd. I mean, think about how much a $40 million site fee is. And so it's understandable how that fell through, right? Are you freezing? Can you? Because you look like you're frozen a little bit. Can you talk? Say something, brother.
You can't hear me, Joseph? I can hear you clear.
I can now, but it looks like you're frozen a little bit. Looks like you're, well, anyway, not, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Okay. I can hear you. That's a problem. Okay. It looks like KingRy is trying to reconnect, right? So guys, I want to welcome you to Warweek Radio chat room. And, look, guys, there was only one reason. And you know, when this was first recommended, or when this was first made attention to media outlets and first being reported that Manny Pacquiao wanted $40 million to fight Terence Crawford, everyone thought he was pricing himself out. And ordinarily that would be interpreted as a fighter pricing himself out, right? But in this situation, welcome back, KingRy. In this situation, guys, Manny Pacquiao was being serious because that was a deal first brought to the table by Top Rank. And this was being put together as early as November and December of 2019, right? This was something that Bob Arum wanted for Terence Crawford because, and once again, guys, Bob Arum wants the big fights for Terence Crawford so he'll actually make some of his money back. He's been giving Terence Crawford a $4 million guarantee per fight. Okay, so if anyone thinks that Terence Crawford is a protected fighter, he is the polar opposite of a protected fighter. If anyone is ready to cash in on their superstar fighter, it's Bob Arum with Terence Crawford. So a lot of people are currently talking about, oh, well, Terence Crawford, he's the one who backed out of the fight with Manny. No. There was no fight with Manny without that $40 million site fee. And since funding fell out, there is no fight. It's all but dead. Your thoughts on this? Your thoughts on some of the criticism that once again Bob Arum and Terence Crawford are receiving?
You know what? With Bob Arum, I just don't get it, Joseph. Can you hear me, clear?
I can hear you perfectly, sir.
Yeah. With Bob Arum, I just don't get it. You know, when you talk about Top Rank, and if you're really a boxing fan, and if you're looking at boxing, and if you're looking at the fights that are getting made and the shows that are getting put on, Bob Arum and Top Rank, they put on the best shows in boxing, and that's clearly no debate. Like my guy Joseph Herron said, $40 million site fee. That's unheard of. When have y'all heard of that in the States? But when it comes to Terence Crawford, the boogeyman in boxing, it's Manny Pacquiao. He won a $40 million site fee. Y'all guys fail to realize this is the same Manny Pacquiao who was on the same banner with Terence Crawford for years. And Terence Crawford steady called this guy out. And Manny Pacquiao didn't want no smoke with him. So I just put this on Manny Pacquiao for this fight, following out him definitely, Joseph, outpricing himself, putting the price out there that we know that was unheard of, that no fighter in the States could ask for it, even if you're not Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, I mean, look, shows you what kind of boogeyman Terence Crawford is, because I guarantee Pacquiao isn't demanding $40 million to fight Errol Spence. Right? Now, there goes to our next question. KingRy, in your opinion, now it's been rumored, and I don't know how true these rumors are, because all I've heard is that Spence versus Pacquiao is now in negotiations, and it makes a lot of sense. That is the biggest fight. If there is no $40 million site fee in the Middle East, then the biggest money fight and the natural progression will be Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence Jr. at AT&T Stadium, where you have the potential of attracting possibly even more than Canelo versus Saunders in that cavernous stadium, right? That traditionally holds, I think for WrestleMania several years ago, it packed over 100,000 fans, right? Well, for Spence, a hometown guy and a known legend, which could possibly be his final fight, yeah, I think it could attract close to 100,000 fans for that fight. That is the biggest money fight for Pacquiao if there is no $40 million site fee. But there are rumors that Spence and Heyman are too far advanced into their negotiation process with Yordenis Ugas putting together a fight in July for those two. Do you think that Heyman and Spence are foolish enough to pass up the prospect and the possibility of putting together a fight with Manny Pacquiao?
I hope they're not foolish, because if Errol Spence don't, like, this is Manny Pacquiao we're talking about. This is an all-time great. And, you know, in the history of boxing, you know, one thing that these fighters, all-time great fighters, can't get past is father time. And it's always the younger fighter who gets the older fighter, who retires the younger fighter. That's just how boxing always been. And if Errol Spence, Al Heyman, PBC, and all the executives over there turn down this fight, this is the dumbest move ever. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Errol Spence, you're talking about legacy. You're talking about having a name on your resume who people going to go back and look and be like, oh, Errol Spence beat Manny Pacquiao, and you turn down this fight? Absolutely, it's foolish, 100%. And you know what? It's also sad, too, because it's sad, right, if this fight possibly gets made, Joseph, and the Terence Crawford fight fell out because Manny Pacquiao was wanting $40 million, but now, okay, it's going to be so easy to make this Earl fight. It just shows me with the two, with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, how Manny Pacquiao feel about each one of them.
Well, this is what fans have been regurgitating, and honestly, I don't like regurgitating the sentiment of most fans, because unless you've been in the business, you don't know half of what you think you know. Right? You don't know half of it, right? But fans will often regurgitate Well, Manny doesn't have a belt anymore. Oh, okay. Anyone who understands the business knows the reality of this, that a win over Manny Pacquiao is much more valuable to Spence and Heyman than a mere WBA trinket, which is devalued considerably, right? That is meaningless to a guy at Spence's level. Like he needs a big win over a mainstream name like Pacquiao to get him to that next financial level. Not another belt against a guy that most people have never heard of in Yordeña Ugas, right? What does that do for him? What does a win and another title do for him? What does it do for him?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Right? A win over Pacquiao, though, okay, that brings him into a greater area of consciousness to the mainstream and casual fans in America. Makes him a bigger star. A decisive win. Like, if he knocks out Manny Pacquiao, he becomes a superstar, right? And he becomes something that his legion of idiots, fans, already believe him to be, right? For some reason, his fans seem to think that he's, and look, I'm not a hater or anything. I just don't have an emotional investment in any one of these fighters. I report, and I've been in this business for almost 20 years, so I haven't thought like a fan in almost 2 decades, right? But his legion of fanboys seem to think that he's already the biggest draw in America. Dude, I tell you what, right now, Jake Paul is laughing at that idea. But look, in order to get to that next financial level and to that next level of mainstream consciousness, yes, a fight with Manny Pacquiao is worth a lot more than picking up another belt from a guy who no one's ever heard of outside of the diehard arena, the diehard community. Your final thoughts on this before we move forward, man?
Yeah, no, it's just delusional to even think about Errol Spence fighting Yordeña Ugas rather than him fighting Manny Pacquiao if that's on the table. It's just delusional for Errol Spence and his team, and it's delusional for all his fanboys from the 214 to across the pond.
Oh, goodness. I tell you what, man. So we move forward. Let's go to our next topic, and that's Mr. Ryan Garcia. You know what? It's funny, man. I can't understand these fans, brother. There's, you know what? It's starting to make sense now why Heyman, as well as a lot of other promoters, have disregarded the age-old adage that the fans are the real bosses of the sport. Because all you have to do is turn to social media and understand that these guys are delusional. Like this, a lot of these fans are weird, like they're living in fantasy land. Like, where do they get this stuff? And how do they believe this nonsense? Anyway, so we're going to Ryan Garcia, and he just withdrew from his bout against Javier Fortuna, scheduled for July 9th on DAZN, right? And so I'm going to talk, or I'm going to recite his quote that he made on his Instagram page, right? He stated this. He goes, "I know this news may be disappointing to some of my fans, but I'm announcing today that I'm withdrawing from my July 9th fight. At this time, it is important to manage my health and well-being. I've decided to take some time off to focus on becoming a stronger version of myself. I hope to be back soon, and I'm looking forward to stepping back into the ring when I am at my healthiest self. I want to thank God, my family, my doctors, and my supporters." Now, KingRy, when I read that this past Saturday when it was published, and it was made public, I immediately read that and I said, wow, you know what? That sounds emotional. That sounds like he's suffering from mental anguish, some kind of mental stress, right? And it's something I'm very familiar with, and I'll expound on that in greater detail in just a bit. But before that, let me Let me recite the classy response from Javier Fortuna, who elected to be very diplomatic rather than throwing daggers at someone who just cost him a big payday, right? This is what Javier Fortuna had to say on his social media account. Quote, I wish Ryan Garcia a speedy recovery. There are things more important than fighting, and I hope he is able to recover quickly so we can reschedule our fight for a time when I can face and beat a 100% prepared version of Ryan Garcia. End quote. So this is what Oscar De La Hoya had to say about this. The health of our fighters is of utmost importance to us at Golden Boy. We wholeheartedly support Ryan Garcia and wish him the best during this time. Now, initially, Eric Gomez and De La Hoya, they were like, no comment. But this is what De La Hoya had to say further about this, right? Or Eric Gomez told Ring Magazine that this was indeed some kind of mental anguish that he's suffering from, right? Now, he didn't disclose what kind of mental issues this was, like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, which has become very common as of late, right? Your thoughts on this, because even though Ryan Garcia has received a lot of support from the boxing community and from fans, he's also received a lot of negative criticism. Your thoughts on that, brother?
First off, I want to send my respect to Ryan Garcia and his family, especially Ryan Garcia for having the courage to come out, to the public, with him being this young, big star and, show his emotions and tell us the truth, what's going on with him. Like I said, speaking with guys like Joseph, doing research about mental health issues, that's nothing to play with, right? So with Ryan Garcia coming out here having the courage to tell everybody what he's going through, I send all my respect, and we're going to send him prayers from her on War Week Radio and wish him a speedy recovery. Like I said, speaking with guys like Joseph, who gave me a lot of information about mental health, he told me, as a fighter, having that type of being depressed and having that type of pressure on you, that's mind-boggling for a fighter, And with Ryan Garcia having that on him and not having the proper medication to for him to function right, that's not a good look, right? So we send all our respect to Ryan Garcia, for coming out, and having the courage, because one thing that us men have problems with, we have problems coming out, pouring our emotions, telling the truth, telling how we feel because we think we're going to get judged a certain way. So we need to all big dog salute Ryan Garcia. Now, this is where I have a problem with it at. With all you people around the world, how malicious can y'all be? How insensitive can y'all be to this situation? You have some people coming out here saying, oh, Garcia, he should make a point because he's trying to get more money from Golden Boy. Woo-de-woo. How insensitive can you be to come out and say a malicious statement like that when this man had just came out and had the courage to tell you what he's going through? Like, it's sickening hearing the public come out with all this negative attention that he's getting, thinking this dude is doing this to try to get more money or anything else. No, and that's not the case. And you have to be a sick person, like in your soul, to even think that, to even question this young man.
Well, look, man, and it's quite shocking, some of these yes, some of these remarks, some of the negative criticism by fans, right? And first of all, let me read another positive, right? Positive comment from a real classic response from Teofimo Lopez, right? He put this on Twitter, published this on Twitter, right? Showing support to his colleague Ryan Garcia. Quote, and he's right on the money with this, quote, "It takes a brave soul like Ryan Garcia to openly express that he's going through tough times mentally. Instead of pointing the finger at him, maybe you all should take a lesson from it. We're all dealing with something, so what makes us any better? Hashtag love yours." Right? Very classy response, right? And just to give you an indication, right? And I'm about to, and because I know a lot about this, and I once again I was educated the hard way because I've had to deal with this not through myself, but through loved ones, people that I care about, who have been suffering from anxiety, severe depression, as well as bipolar disorder, right? It not only affects everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, but it makes even trivial tasks somewhat daunting and stressful. It not only affects themselves and their activity and their day-to-day accomplishments, but it also affects everyone around them. This is what Garcia, actually, this is how he described, right, on Instagram, his struggles with anxiety and depression. Quote, "Some days I cry. Some days I don't even want to speak. I give my all just to function at times. But I try my best to keep a smile for all of you. I love you guys who look up to me." End quote. Guys, just to give you an idea, someone very close to me who suffers from this and has to take medication every single day, right? Just to balance to a normal level their severe anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder, right? Just to give you an idea, I asked them, so what does it feel like when you're not taking your medication? They said, you know, at times I feel fine, but there are times when I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. It's agonizing, and you feel like you have no control over your life. It feels almost like you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and you can feel the water rising above your head. Now, just think about that, guys, physically. Because I said metaphorically, can you describe it to something, right? Can you describe it to something just so everyone can make sense of what you're feeling, what it really feels like to have to go through something like that? And that's what that person said. They said, okay, also, let me give you another analogy. Think about whether, like, you're in a coffin and you can see through the coffin and you can see people shoveling dirt on top of you, burying you alive. And you're alive, you're breathing, and you can't get out of the coffin and tell them that you're still alive. That's what it feels like. It feels overwhelming, like you can't handle it. Now, think about this. Think about how that person, now keep in mind, if you want to win in the sport of boxing, if you want to be competitive, you have to have the mindset that you're going to win. You have to be brimming with confidence. And if you are currently struggling with this mental disorder and this severe condition, if you're not where you need to be mentally, then you shouldn't be competing in the ring. If you're not brimming with confidence and believe that you're going to tear this guy's head off and be victorious, if you are anything less than that, then you should not be competing, because this guy is trying to hurt you and defeat you. He's trying. It's like, think about how that must be. If you're dealing with this severe depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, think about you're all alone in the ring and you're standing across the ring from some guy who wants to beat you into submission. Think about that. Now, let me ask you, and once again, this is not exactly the same situation, but the last thing we want, and once again, credit to Ryan Garcia for showing the humility to admit that he needs help. Because we've all seen what happens when guys are too proud and don't admit that they need help, and it goes undiagnosed and untreated. Look at Oliver McCall several years ago when he entered the ring with Lennox Lewis, suffering from bipolar disorder and anxiety and severe depression. Now, it didn't help also that he was taking a lot of drugs. And once again, that's what a lot of people do to try and self-medicate, right? They will start to treat themselves by smoking weed to try and alleviate that level of anxiety, right? That's not healthy either, because you don't receive an accurate diagnosis. And once again, it's very difficult to diagnose. This is not a broken arm or not a broken hand where you can just get imaging and MRIs to see what's wrong. Okay, this is the brain. And in boxing, you're taking shots to the brain, which doesn't help. So him actually doing the right thing and trusting the people close to him to go get diagnosed, to go get treated, and so he can be 100% in the ring. And this is how it's going to benefit him. When he gets treatment, and once again, I know this because of people very close to me, and I've done a ton of research on this, right? So what this medication is going to do when he gets diagnosed and he gets put on proper medication, it's going to curb his emotions and his emotional response. So think about how much tougher and how much more difficult of an assignment Ryan Garcia is going to be once he seeks treatment. He's going to be less emotional, and he's going to think about things a lot more logically. It's going to help him think and focus.
And Joseph,
if you thought he was dangerous before, he's going to be an absolute beast when he returns to the ring treated with a proper diagnosis. Your thoughts on this before we move forward, brother?
And just to piggyback off of that, I want everybody to think of how big of a social media following that Ryan Garcia have. How many people who are going through his same situation that he's going through right now, and with him coming out having the courage to put his heart on the table, to take his emotions off his sleeves, to spread it to everybody. Think of how many more people are going to come out and be like, hey, if it's somebody who close to them that they could talk to and tell them that they're feeling the same way. So I salute Ryan Garcia. Praying for his family, sending his family my respect, and I'm just happy that he came out, and had the courage to tell everyone about his problems that he was going through.
Yeah, you know what? It takes character. It takes character and humility, right? And a lot of people who are comparing his situation to Deontay Wilder, Adrian Broner, or Errol Spence. Okay, well, this is what happens when you admit that you have a problem. You don't accuse people of trying to kill you in the ring. You don't have these absurd accusations or delusions of tampering your water, tampering the gloves, conspiring against you. You don't have these. You don't lash out and sexually or physically assault people, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't make stupid decisions like driving while intoxicated till you're blacked out drunk, right? Mm-hmm. That's the difference. Ryan Garcia is trying to prevent any of it from escalating to a point where he either harms himself or harms someone else. So once again, it's called character, guys. And exactly. he should be heralded for putting forth that kind of humility and admitting he has a problem before it gets to the point where he damages his reputation in his career or someone else's life, right? So we're moving on, brother. Any final thoughts on this before we move forward, or are you good?
No, I couldn't have said anything better. Like you say, he didn't let it go to you driving intoxicated where you almost take your life. He didn't let it go to where you're driving intoxicated, hit and run, and hurt somebody seriously, and you lead a scene. He didn't do none of that. He came out and expressed his opinion before any of that thing happened. Great assessment, Joseph. Great assessment.
Thank you, brother. I tell you what, let's go back to Bob Arum, right? Now, let's go back to Joshua. Let's do this. Let's move to Joshua versus Fury. I want to get your thoughts on this, brother. We've just changed topic on the banner if you guys are looking. You know what? I have to say this. Bob Arum has been very, very, well, he seems to be, like, he genuinely doesn't believe that this fight is going to happen, and I can understand why. After funding for Crawford versus Pacquiao falling out underneath him and basically canceling out and canceling that great fight that everyone was kind of looking forward to, right? It's understandable why he is doubting now that Joshua Fury, which is a much larger site fee. I mean, look, if he couldn't secure a $40 million site fee from the Middle East, which is huge, astronomical, I can understand why he's doubtful that Eddie Hearn will not be able to pull the trigger on a $150 million site fee, which is absurd. That's the largest site fee I've ever seen in my life, right? This is what he had to say about it. Quote, Eddie Hearn is busy trying to sell the London Bridge. Let me tell you, last time I talked to Eddie was early last week, and he said he was going to have a signed agreement from the Saudis in 24 hours. Well, he's a little late. Wouldn't you be pessimistic if you hadn't heard from him or anybody for a week? We're the promoter with Frank Warren of Fury, and we haven't heard from Eddie in a week. End quote. Right? So, yeah, I can understand why he's very skeptical that this fight, why he thinks this fight won't happen. Right? And here's to answer anyone's questions who think that this is a product of Deontay Wilder's BS waste of time arbitration, right? So when asked if this had anything to do with the arbitration from Deontay Wilder and his handlers, this is what Arum had to say. Look, the arbitration is going on, but it's a waste of time and money. He's not going to get anything out of it. He's trying to get damages. He's trying to get money. It's definitely not going to result in a third fight with Tyson Fury. End quote. Guys, his arbitration is a waste of time and a last-ditch effort in trying to get something out of a third fight not happening. Okay? So, guys, anyone who thinks this fight not happening, right, is a result of Deontay Wilder's arbitration, you're living in fantasy land. Okay? Your thoughts on this before we move forward, right? Before we move forward, and once again, I have a real problem with Joshua versus Fury not happening and all of this taking place and how it's gone down. And this is, and I'm about to vent, KingRy, so I'm going to give you your final thoughts before I just let all of these guys involved just have it, right? First of all, I want to give my brother from Tijuana, Peter, a shout out. Thanks for tuning in, brother. But KingRy, your thoughts on this, my friend?
Building.
Yep, absolutely.
I agree with Bob Arum. I'll be pessimistic too. If I ain't heard from you in a week, and especially if the Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford fight fell through that he was trying to get, I'll be pessimistic too. So it's like up in the air. But it's like that with these fighters these days. They're a bunch of divas. So I don't know. I just agree with Bob Arum. I'm pessimistic on the situation too, Joseph.
Well, look, and there's no reason for anyone to be pessimistic about this, right? This is the problem I have with this. Okay, well, so what if an unrealistic site fee like $150 million doesn't come through? Go to plan B. Go to your next best option. Don't just give up on the matchup because this is the fight that everyone wants to see. So what if you guys don't make an unrealistic $75 million apiece? So what, are you going to hold this fight hostage and not compete until you make that kind of money? That's what's wrong with the sport, guys. That's what's wrong with the sport. Look, let me tell you something, and we're going to talk about this in great length also. This is what's wrong with this current crop of fighters. I have no idea why they've been conditioned to think this way, but for some strange reason, they don't want to enter the ring with any kind of incentive-based pay scale. Look at Jake Paul. How much was his guarantee before he fought Ben Askren a couple weeks ago on Triller? KingRy, how much was his guarantee?
$690,000.
Okay, very good. So excellent, very good. So he was only being guaranteed $680,000, and his pay was all progressive based on his performance of the pay-per-view. It was all incentive-based, right? Mm-hmm. So why are we seeing a guy like Andy Ruiz on pay-per-view? It's out of necessity. And why? Because he has no idea how this pay-per-view is going to perform, yet he wants $3 million guaranteed, and he doesn't draw nearly as well as Jake Paul. So that's the problem, guys. Okay, to show these guys what the realistic market value is, they should take a page out of the Jake Paul handbook and pay scale and get paid according to incentive and performance. Okay, they just to show them, hey, you guys don't draw. Not enough to demand $3-4 million. This is your realistic market value, and to prove to you what kind of attraction and draw you are currently, we're going to give you a $500,000 guarantee, and everything is going to be incentive-based, and you're going to get paid based on the performance of your pay-per-view, and it's a back-end deal. That's what UFC does. That's what every other sustainable business model does. You don't get this huge guarantee unless you can guarantee pay-per-view buys. Until you can put up numbers like Jake Paul, Floyd Mayweather, or anyone else who's a legitimate draw, you have no business asking for a huge pre-fight guarantee. So think about this, KingRy, going back to Joshua versus Fury. Why on earth are these guys holding this fight hostage to try and get money that is not guaranteed is going to be there? It's like they know that this isn't a huge fight in America. Even though this is, like, let me ask you something. Even though this is the biggest fight in boxing globally, how well do you think Joshua versus Fury does in the American sports market? How many purchases does it do? Do you think it does as well as Jake Paul versus Ben Askren? Do you think it does as well as Mike Tyson versus Jones?
Hell no.
Then why are these guys demanding $75 million apiece?
It's the ego in boxing.
That's what's wrong with boxing. These guys have grown so accustomed to receiving these inflated purses. Look, boxing is not run like any other sport. That's the problem. They look at the other sporting leagues, and if you put up great numbers or if it's a big event, they expect to be compensated relatively, right? But it's not run like that. It's run like the music industry. If there's no demand, where do they think the money is going to come from? Where's the money supposed to come from if no one wants to purchase it? That's the problem with the way the sport is run today, right? And that's what problem I have with Joshua versus Fury. Look, if the money's not there, let's put the fight in. Let's go to plan B. Put the fight in a Vegas casino. Get whatever site fee you can. Sell whatever tickets you can. You know what? Don't be holding this fight hostage, though, because you're waiting for something that's not there. Your final thoughts on this before we move forward, because I'm honestly sickened. I'm sickened of this, man. This is obviously the biggest fight in boxing, right? The most important fight in boxing. The very first, and it's the first ever unification bout. Undisputed unification bout in the 4-belt era in the heavyweight division. We've never seen this, right? And they're holding it hostage because they don't have the money that both guys want or demand. Yeah, that's what's wrong with the sport. Your final thoughts on this before we move forward, brother?
Yeah, it's the ego of these boxers, right? And these fans, like, your fans can't be as stupid as some of your comments y'all make. You have to understand, fighters fight. I need y'all to understand, Mr. LTB and Joseph Harry, when I say this, fighters fight. If these fighters want to fight, they'll fight. You think they care about you fans? Because if they cared about you fans, they wouldn't be talking about, oh, this site fee, we want to be guaranteed this and guaranteed that. You see the model and how it's going? Every sports organization, from football to basketball, MLB, UFC, we all went through the COVID process. But out of all the major sports, boxing is the only one who failed us miserably.
No, you're absolutely right. Look, think about this. How many other sports, in how many other sports are their biggest stars sitting out because they're not getting paid enough? That's only in boxing. That's why boxing is failing miserably, right? And I tell you what, as much as I can't stand Dana White, sorry, man, I'm getting me another cup of coffee, brother, because it's midday and I'm old. Hold on, man.
And look, I understand.
but no. Look, this is Dana White has a point. As much as I can't stand that miserable, ball-headed thug, right? As much as I can't stand that guy, he has a point. When you hear fighters demand X amount of dollars, millions of dollars, before they ever go into the ring and before they even know how much that pay-per-view performs or how well it does, it's a non-sustainable business model. It's a non-sustainable business model. Look, if you want a progressive-based pay scale, there's nothing wrong with that. You should receive the great majority. Like, if your pay-per-view does really, really well, you should be compensated for it. You should get the majority of that money. Not a cable company, not a streaming app, not a promoter. The fighter should get the majority of that money if their pay-per-view performs. But if it doesn't, why on earth should you actually put everyone in bankruptcy and cause everyone to lose money just because you demanded that big fight guarantee? Look, guys, if you understand the business of boxing, that's the real reason why Wilder Fury 3 never happened. And more than likely won't happen, because everyone involved lost money. The only people that made money on that deal is Fury and Wilder, who took home $25 million guaranteed. Everyone else lost money on the deal. Fox, ESPN, that's the real reason why the third fight didn't take place. Because they're like, look, guys, if you want to actually hold our feet to the fire of this contractual obligation and force us to honor this contract and put together a third fight, it's not going to end well for both Heyman and Arum. It's going to come out of your budgets. It's going to come out of your pocket. We're not going to be liable for this inflated purse any longer. So I suggest you guys find a way out of this, and that's exactly what Arum did. Waited till the contract expired, then decided to move on. That's why this arbitration is nonsense, and that's why Arum's saying It's nonsense. He's got nothing. Everyone lost money in the second fight. Okay, what is he trying to get damages from? What, a fight that never happened? What is he seeking damages for? For making money in the second fight while no one else did? He made $25 million and he's trying to seek even more money for a fight that hasn't happened. And do you really think any judge is going to rule in favor of Deontay Wilder during a pandemic? That's why it's nonsense, guys. Everyone knows this. Anyone who is familiar with the business understands this. Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, everyone is like, oh, this is just a last-ditch effort to try and get some kind of financial damages. But it's not going to work. It's nonsense, and it's a waste of time and money. So that's it, brother. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold up, Joseph. One more point. You make, and I can't lie to you, speaking with you, you make a lot of great sense about Dana White, and I understand your angers with him. And like you say, when it comes to the percentages, like you say, when you broke that down to me, I understand that, yeah, fighters should make better percentages, in the UFC. But the thing, what I hate about boxing is like, you got these guys who the fans, who we all love. Yeah, we love these fighters. We love them because they are part of the sport of boxing, right? But how much do these fighters love us? Y'all think these fighters out here give a damn about us? We sit out here and we complain for Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury again. But do you think they give a damn about us? Because during this COVID time, like I said, I see all the other sports going on. UFC, you see the fights that the fans want to see. It's going on. But in our sport, in boxing, we can't get it. Because guess what? These fighters, they don't give a damn about us. And y'all sit up here and try to protect these guys like they just can walk on water, like they are a god above. They're not. They don't give a damn about us. Because if they did during these COVID times, they wouldn't have thought about, how much money I'm going to make. They should understand that the money wasn't there, just like the rest of these other sports did, and make these fights happen. But did they?
Well,
no.
Correct. Let me explain, though, why they don't care anymore. And they're somewhat justified in not caring about what fans think, right? Here's the difference. In eras past, the fighters, promoters, networks, and fighters all understood that the fans were the real bosses of boxing. In previous, more, healthier eras of boxing, right? Well, since then, boxing diehards do not financially, like statistics have already shown and proven that boxing diehards do not financially support any of these events any longer. They don't pay for them. They stream them illegally. And this has already been proven statistically that 85 to 90% of all boxing diehards do not financially pay. They don't pay for these events any longer. They stream them. So guys like Heyman, fighters like Spence, they're like, why on earth should we care about what fans want if they're not financially supporting these events any longer? And fans are like, well, give us a fight that we actually want to see, and then we'll pay for it. So it's we're kind of at an impasse in terms of fan relationship to promoter, network, and fighter. Right? Mm-hmm. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem right now with fan, fighter, promoter, network relationship. And
you make an excellent point. And
go ahead, sir.
And I apologize to War Week Radio because I did. I said that wrong. Like, they don't give a damn about us about putting these fights on. And you have these idiotic fans out here. You have these idiotic fans out here. And my thing is, I understand the fans, Joseph, why they don't support these guys. You know why? Because these guys don't give us what we want. Like I said, I know we're going to get to this later about Floyd Mayweather, but I hate when people blame this on Floyd Mayweather. I hate that. I hate when Floyd Mayweather get the blunt of the blame. Because when I look at one of the fighters all-time great in Floyd Mayweather. Everything he did in the sport of boxing, he earned that. Like you said, Joseph, when you speak about Terence Crawford, and you're excellent in breaking that down. And I want you to break that down real quick. With Terence Crawford, you said they didn't just try to give him no easy fights. You broke that down to me the other day about the fights that they gave him. They didn't excuse my language, pussyfoot him to get to where he is right now.
Look, anytime you accomplish, and this is what I can't understand. I don't understand why there's any at all negative criticism towards Terence Crawford. At 35, you can't become a unified champion in any weight division without fighting someone of consequence or at the elite level. It doesn't happen. How do you become an undisputed unified champion at 140 pounds without having to fight someone of consequence? 35, 40. Okay, he hasn't been able to accomplish that at 47 because he hasn't received the opportunity. And once again, just look at Gennady Golovkin's career pre-Canelo, right? When he was considered the boogeyman, undefeated. Look how many successful title defenses he has at 160 pounds, right? You cannot fault an avoided fighter for having holes in their resume. And once again, you can't fault the promoter because Crawford is the polar opposite of being a protected fighter. If there's any promoter who's ready to cash in their fighter, it's Top Rank with Crawford because they are losing money with him currently. You can't tell me that they don't want the big fights. Because right now, you really think they're making money having him fight guys like Kell Brook? Having him fight guys like Jose Benavidez Jr.? You think they're making money from that? Fighting guys like Igas Calvillasquez? They lost their ass with the Amir Khan campaign and pay-per-view. Okay? So do you think Bob Arum is happy losing money, guaranteeing Terence Crawford $4 million? The reason why they gave him that and re-signed him, when they re-signed him and gave him a contract extension, they gave him a big fight guarantee of $4 million. And you know why? Because they thought for sure, well, he's in the position now where we're going to be able to get him the next big fights, the big fights. We're either going to get him fights with Keith Thurman or Sean Porter or Errol Spence Jr. or Manny Pacquiao. All four of those would yield and justify the $4 million guarantee that we just gave him. But guess what? They haven't been able to make those a reality. So when you give him $4 million to fight Igas Calvillasquez, you're losing money. You're losing money. The ratings do not justify it. The almost $10 million they spent in purse guarantees for the Amir Khan fight, they lost their rear end. The pay-per-view numbers underperformed, and it did not justify giving those guys such hefty pre-fight guarantees. So Arum is ready to cash in with Terence Crawford.
Hey, Joseph,
he's been looking for those big fights. Huh?
Forgot about the extra million if he don't get the Earl Spence fight each year.
No. You misunderstood. In the contract, it says if you don't try, if you don't make an offer to Heyman and Spence to try and get that fight, then you owe him $1 million. Okay, so they've actually reached out to everyone because it's in their best interest. This is why I don't understand why Arum and Crawford get blamed for these fights not happening. You think they like losing money? Like, seriously, do you think they like losing money? Hey, KingRy, I just wanted to, there's a gentleman who just joined us called the Outlaw Pugilist. He says this to you. Salute to the chat and everyone, Mr. IOTBA, where you been, my brother? Been waiting for you to go live for a while now, end quote. Thank you for tuning in, Outlaw Pugilist.
Well, you'll be hearing me, Outlaw Pugilist, on War Week Radio every time me and my dog, Joseph Aaron, go live to do our show.
Also, plug your new platform, man.
Oh yeah, man. Y'all know every Thursday now I'm on FBRN.com, Fishbowl Radio Network. Y'all make sure y'all check me out every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Yeah, appreciate that, Joseph.
Thank you, man, for being on here. So let's move forward because we're out an hour, almost an hour in, and we haven't even touched Ruiz versus Arreola, Chisora versus Parker. But our next topic is going to be read that ticker. You see that ticker? Mayweather versus Paul. How does this do on pay-per-view? And does Showtime move the date from June 6th to another date? Right? Because to be honest with you, when you look at what a hot brand Triller is right now, why on earth would they go head-to-head with Triller and Snoop Dogg when you look at the success the first two events have had? They're not going to be going head-to-head on the same night, but it's going to be the following evening, June 6th on a Sunday. Do you think Espinosa and everyone involved keeps this date, or do you think they move it? Correct.
I mean, if Espinosa want to keep his job, which I have no way in God's green earth understand, you know, the way Showtime been ease on down the road, the way they been easing on down the road in boxing, I have no idea how he kept his job. But if he keep this date trying to compete with Triller, this is an absolute idiotic move, one of the many idiotic moves on Steven Espinosa part. But also, Joseph, I have to look at the other side. You know, when you speak with a guy like Joseph, who done been in the business of boxing, and, you know, he give you breakdowns and make you have understanding of both sides. When I look at a Floyd Mayweather Jr., and when I look at the Paul brother, who he finna fight, economically, if we looking at what Jake Paul just did, when he did almost 2 million buys, right? This is Floyd Mayweather Jr., and when I think about them Paul brother names right now, they are definitely a hot commodity. And when you add that with Floyd Mayweather Jr., I possibly think this could be successful. Because when you think about how Teofimo Lopez, even though I like Triller and Snoop Dogg, you know, as obnoxious as that little fella have been, you know, the way he been acting and handling himself in the media, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, are turned off a little bit and were like, okay, I could bypass this fight. That's Floyd Mayweather. This is a once-in-a-lifetime generational athlete who changed the game of boxing. So I could possibly see how they could move today and how they could keep it.
Well, KingRy, I'll say this, brother. The fact that they're actually being this brazen and putting this date on the same weekend as a fight that is so potentially impactful to the health of the sport shows me and tells me that Mayweather doesn't give two shits about the health of the sport and is the most selfish prick to ever be associated with boxing. He doesn't care. Because think about how bad this will be for fighters. And I'm not talking about YouTubers or geezers who have already had their moment in the sun. I'm talking about two young stars of the sport. Think about how bad this will be if Teofimo and George Kambosos tanks and underperforms on the pay-per-view, all because it's on the same weekend as Mayweather versus Paul. Triller's going to be like, well, here you guys demand the most expensive purses, and you guys don't draw or sell pay-per-views. So guess what? From this point forward, we're not going to feature any young active fighters, any real boxing matches any longer. That's what I can't stand about this. This Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos pay-per-view, this has a lot riding on it for the positive health of the sport. And one thing you have to know about Fight Saga, guys, and War Week Radio, we've been in the business for a very long time. So we're not pro fighter. We're not pro promoter. We're not pro network. We're pro boxing. And if something is for the good of that, for the improvement of the health of boxing, then we're all for it. But if it's something that is a detriment to the health of the sport, then we're against it completely, right? And that's the only investment that we have. Otherwise, we really don't care emotionally. We just report and we basically tell you what we think, right? Sans emotion. But in this case, yeah, there's a lot riding on this fight. Triller very well may be the savior that introduces the sport of boxing to an entirely different demographic and much healthier demographic, one that wants and doesn't mind financially supporting these events. Because right now, like I said, boxing diehards, they're no longer financially supporting these events. So it's very important that we have a platform that's introducing our beloved boxing to an entirely new mainstream and casual demographic. And Floyd Mayweather doesn't give a shit. He's going head to head with this that very well may detract from the purchases of the Triller event, Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos. Your thoughts on this?
No, I agree with you. I wouldn't say I agree with you 100%, but I agree with you 100% when you say that Floyd Mayweather is a selfish. But you know what, Joseph? It's not Floyd Mayweather's fault that these boxers are acting the way they're acting right now. You know, a lot of people try to blame this on Floyd, you know, but I don't. Because Floyd actually did what it took to get himself in this position. And if these fighters weren't acting like so many divas in the way they acting, big dog, Floyd Mayweather wouldn't be able to come back and be selfish and be able to do things like this. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%. When you say Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos is so important for boxing. And that's such a big-time fight. And I think we get in that on our next episode, because I got a lot more to talk about that fight. But that's such an extremely huge fight in boxing. But we're talking about boxing as a whole, right? And when you look at boxing as a whole and the way these divas are acting, the boxing public, the diehards and the casuals, you know, it's no intrigue into watching it because we can't get what we want. So it gives that guy in Floyd Money Mayweather every opportunity to come back and say, hey, I'm fighting on June 6th against Logan Paul on Showtime pay-per-view. Now what? But I agree with you 100% when you say, Joseph, is Floyd Mayweather selfish? Absolutely. Him coming back, is this putting a detriment in boxing a little bit? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we can't blame Floyd. We got to put the blame on boxing as a whole.
You know what? I can blame Floyd for this because this is just selfish. Right? It's selfish. He's seen how much attention and how much money was made by Jake Paul and Ben Askren. And he cannot stand to see someone else become the biggest draw in boxing. He can't stand it. He's a selfish prick. He always has been. He needs to be the center of attention. That little man who suffers from Napoleon complex can't stand that someone else is getting the limelight. There's no coincidence that this was announced and negotiated and finalized after he saw the success that Jake Paul just had. That's not a coincidence, brother. Okay, this is where I think, and maybe I'm in the minority, but honestly, I can't see this doing as well. I don't care if it's Mayweather. I don't care if it's Logan Paul, but this is an exhibition. Okay? Exhibition by the rules, right? Customarily, this is what we have to expect by an exhibition. Don't expect any fighter to get hurt by his opponent. because that is against the unwritten and written rules of any exhibition. Don't expect a fighter to take advantage of an opponent who is hurt or is tired. Don't expect a fighter to seek a knockout in any way, shape, or form, because that's not what exhibitions are. Don't expect a real or legitimate decision or even a real fight in this exhibition, because that's again, why would anyone want to pay for this? This isn't a real fight. By definition, this is an exhibition. Okay? You're going to see Floyd Mayweather carry this chump who has no business being in the ring with him. This guy lost a decision to someone who can't fight, like KSI. Why would anyone want to pay for this? This is nonsense. And so they're expecting to sell out a stadium, home of the Miami Dolphins, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. They're expecting to sell that out and sell pay-per-views. Who on earth is going to want to buy this?
Joseph, question. You don't think that Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather, their star ability could sell that out, especially with all these young fans who riding on this wave of the Paul brothers right now. I think it could be a sellout.
Look, based on name recognition alone, absolutely. But who's going to want to actually promote and sell this event? It makes absolutely no sense. Look, at least there was a lot of intrigue and controversy behind Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. There was a huge percentage of the MMA fan base who genuinely believed that Ben Askren had a chance to pull off the upset and to knock out or stop or defeat Jake Paul, right? Who in their right mind believes that Logan Paul even deserves to be in the same ring as Floyd Mayweather? No one. This is, you're talking about the greatest defensive fighter and possibly the best fighter of this generation in the ring with a novice who has a loss to another novice like KSI. Who's going to financially support this? What publication is going to want to promote this? This has zero intrigue behind it. Like who? Like this is what I'm saying. This is all ego. In my opinion, this fails miserably to hit the kind of target that they're looking for. They think that this pay-per-view is going to do well over 2 million pay-per-view buys. I don't think it comes anywhere close, because guys, hold on. I don't care what matchup or what name is attached to this. Quality of matchup matters. Quality of matchup matters. Your thoughts? I'm sorry, as you were, KingRy.
No, it's just we didn't think Jake Paul versus Ben.
Oh, dude, I told you it was going to do really well, didn't I?
I know.
I told you it was going to do really well.
You did. But when you read all these articles all over, a lot of people said this was going to stink. So a lot of people thought that, like you told me that, I will give you 100% credit. You told me that this was going to do big numbers. But if you read a lot of articles all over the world, they said this was going to bomb, right?
Well, that's what separates us. Hold on. That's what separates us from everyone else. And I'm telling you, from what I know and from analyzing this, this is not going to do nearly as well as they think it is, because it has absolutely no juice, no buzz, no intrigue behind this matchup. It shouldn't be happening. There was a ton of mainstream buzz and intrigue behind Jake Paul and Ben Askren, where you look at the odds, they were almost even. That was almost an even money fight. Should it have been? No. Look, we talked about this, and we knew Jake Paul was going to wipe up the floor with this guy who didn't even know how to punch. We knew this. But guess what? The mainstream public didn't. They actually thought that this idiot had a chance. Okay? Well, guess what? Everyone knows that Logan Paul has no chance, and this is not even going to be a real fight. It's an exhibition. Why would we want to pay pay-per-view numbers and hundreds or thousands of dollars in tickets just to see these guys dance, square dance in the center of the ring? Who's going to want to pay for that? No one. I'm telling you right now.
No, I agree.
That this doesn't do nearly as well. And I'm going to say this right now. Snoop Dogg outperforms Floyd Mayweather on the same weekend. I'm saying it right now, brother.
No, I agree with you, but I agree. No, I totally agree. And the reason why I agree, because like when you do look at everything that you say about the exhibition, about them dancing, you know, when you think about this matchup with Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul, it feels more like scripted WWE that we're gonna get, like they're working together right now and how they're gonna do performing acts or something. But you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, Joseph. Like it's like I had a dream last night, and this is the honest God truth. I'm not doing this for nothing. I had a dream last night that Logan Paul knocked out Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, Lord, have mercy, brother. In an exhibition. First of all, Floyd Mayweather is too defensive-minded to let anyone knock him out. Okay, and we're talking about real fighters, right? Guys like Manny Pacquiao. If he couldn't knock him out, dude, there's no way in Hades a guy like Logan Paul knocks him out with larger gloves and exhibition rules.
It was about money. It was about money, and I ain't going off speculation. It was just a dream. But
well, yeah, it sure was a dream, brother, because there's no way in Hades that happens. That's completely unrealistic.
Do you think Floyd Mayweather ever would be that low like that? It's just a question.
No, dude, because look, Mayweather's a smart guy. He will not enter the ring if he believes that it's an even money fight or that he has a chance to lose. He will never take a calculated risk like that. There is no risk. Like, look. There's a reason why he's taking this fight, because he doesn't even have to train for this. Mayweather, just like the Conor McGregor fight, did he train hard for Conor McGregor? No. Did he train hard against that Japanese kickboxer? Nope. Is he going to train for this fight? No, because he doesn't have to. There's a reason why he's taking this. This is easy money.
So what realistically
look,
guaranteed money that Floyd Mayweather getting off of this fight? Because you know he is a smart.
I have no idea. I have no idea, but it's going to be more than what he deserves. This event isn't worth 2 cents. Anyone who pays for this is a sucker. Like I said, at least there was some intrigue behind Jake Paul and Ben Askren. And the fans are the ones who made that an intriguing event because of all the controversy they were talking about. Oh, can Ben Askren win? Can an MMA fighter shut this punk up? Okay, there's no intrigue behind this one. This is an exhibition. This means nothing.
You know what make me mad about this fight, though, too? Because on the post, it say bragging rights, Joseph.
You know what? I'll tell you what, they should change the slogan for this to reflect what this really is. Don't say bragging rights, because it isn't bragging rights. Who cares? What they should call this for what it is, change the slogan to one for the money. Because this is an obvious cash grab, right? This is a cash grab. This is BS. One for the money, because we do not respect you as fans. We're giving you a hot pile of garbage, and we're expecting you to pay top dollar for it. That's what it should be. In fact, they should feature their photos with masks on and guns, saying, "Hey, we're going to hold you up. We're going to. This is a stick up, and this is a legal robbery." Because that's all this is. This is a cash grab. This has no entertainment value whatsoever. None. And anyone who invests money in this, well, they deserve to lose their money. Anyone who purchases this deserves to lose their money. There is zero intrigue in this. This is not a real fight. This is an exhibition. And Floyd doesn't even have to train for this. There's no intrigue. He's going to carry Logan Paul as long as he can.
But if he was smart, though, Joseph, if he was smart, if they were smart, they should have put this on the Gervonta Davis versus
in my opinion, right? They're going to move this date. Like, they're foolish, in my opinion, to go head-to-head with a very hot brand like Triller. Because when you look at the numbers they put up in their first two events, and I know they were very different with very two intriguing attractions, right? But in my opinion, as popular as Snoop Dogg's Fight Club has become, they're foolish to go head-to-head with that in the same weekend. And if Steven Espinosa wants to keep his job or have any real chance of making any money on this, he should move it. He should move it away from this weekend. And in my opinion, that's what happens. And you're going to see this before when they officially announce this event, right? When they have the press conference, you're going to see that this fight is going to be moved. But you know what? I really don't want to talk about this anymore, man. So your final thoughts on this, because this is a waste of time for all knowledgeable and real fight fans. I don't care if it's Floyd Mayweather. This is a waste of time and money. Your final thoughts on this before we talk about Ruiz versus Arreola.
No, I definitely agree. It's a waste of money. And I just think if they smart, they should move this fight to that Barrios versus Davis card, if they smart.
Oh, boy. You know what? And that's another fight that I don't think is going to be on shouldn't be on pay-per-view. And once again, this is par for the course with PBC, right? Why are we getting all of these fights on pay-per-view that have no business being on pay-per-view? Fans didn't ask for it. These aren't great matchups. Andy Ruiz versus Chris Arreola. Now, once again, we're getting on both sides of the pond. And I'm going to combine these two topics. Hold on. Let me switch the banner, right? Here we are. Let's switch the banner right there, right? What does that say? Ruiz versus Arreola pay-per-view preview. Or pay-per-view preview. Okay, we're going to show this one too. Chisora versus Parker pay-per-view preview. Right? And why are we combining these two topics? Because both matchups have no business being on pay-per-view. But both promotional companies, Matchroom Sport as well as PBC, are trying to get the fans to foot the bill for this one. And Matchroom Sport, Eddie Hearn, someone stood up and said, why is this on pay-per-view? Why is this on Sky Sports box office? He said, well, that's because there's no live gate, and I'm guaranteeing the purses of Chisora, Bivol, Parker, Eubank, all of these fighters involved, I'm guaranteeing their purses. And he said, so if you don't want to pay for it, you're not shopping, you're shoplifting. And I'm like, but Eddie, that's your own damn fault for guaranteeing these purses because no one asked for this. No one asked for this. Chisora versus Parker? Are you kidding me? On pay-per-view? Well, there's no live gate. Well, don't stage it then. No one asked for this fight. Who cares? Chris Arreola versus Andy Ruiz. Same situation, but the American version. Did anyone ask for this? No. So why do they expect the fans to foot the bill for this one? This is what's wrong with boxing. They're giving us garbage product that we didn't ask for it, but hey, we want you to pay for it. Sorry, you guys are going to lose your ass because no one in their right mind is going to pay for this rubbish. And you can't justify it. KingRy, can you justify paying your hard-earned money for Ruiz versus Arreola or Parker versus Chisora?
Not one bit. You know, like I say, this is just what boxing is about now. These are the type of matchups we get that they expect us, the public, blue-collar workers, who go out and work every day, going through this time what we're going through right now. And this is the type of rubbish that they put on TV. And not just put it on TV, they put it on pay-per-view and say you got to buy these matchups. Chisora, him versus Parker? Now, hold up. I got one even worse for you. Ruiz versus Arreola. Are you kidding me? Look, respect the Arreola in his career, you know. But we talking about when we talk about over the hill, this guy's over the hill. You know, this fight. Look, listen. I don't understand how this fight even been sanctioned. This guy Arreola ain't fought in 2 years. You know, even though he got a one time he fought here down here on Earl Spence undercard the AT&T Stadium. Come on, let's be honest. This is Ruiz. Have y'all seen that guy? I mean, the last time we seen him, he was, if you're hungry, eat a Snickers. He not Mr. Snickers no more. This dude is stacked.
Like, you know what, KingRy? You know, KingRy, that's an excellent observation, and you're right on the money, brother. Just to support what you're saying, guys, go look at his media workout with his improved speed because he's in such better shape. KingRy's right on the money with this. This isn't even going to be close, guys. Okay, Chris Arreola, to his defense, is in great shape. But you know what that's going to do? All that's going to do is prolong the beating that he's going to take. Rather than get knocked out in 3 or 4 rounds, he's going to get knocked out in 7 or 8. That's all it's going to do at 40 years of age. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who struggled with Travis Kaufman 5 years ago. He's going to get annihilated by Andy Ruiz Jr. Andy Ruiz, go look at his media workout. With his improved physique and his improved speed and upper body and head movement, I'm going to say this right now, guys. He's a problem for everyone in the division, and he looks like right now, okay, forgive me for saying this, he looks like a Mexican Mike Tyson right now. His improved hand speed, his combinations of the inside to the body and head, his little, I mean, dude, and he's going to get hit, but he's not going to get hurt. He has no neck. His huge traps, no neck, his thick skull. You're going to have a hard time hurting this guy. He is going to punish Chris Arreola. And to be honest with you, this version of Andy Ruiz is a real problem for everyone in the division. You're going to see a one-sided beatdown. Guys, the 20-1 odds from the handicappers in most racing sports books, I think they're being generous. This should be a 50-1 fight. Arreola has no chance. Guys, and I hate to say this, just like Chisora has no chance. Chisora is going to get his ass knocked out by an explosive puncher who has a lot to prove right now in Joseph Parker. He understands that every fight from this point forward is a must-win. If he wants any title opportunity from this point forward, he can't afford to take any steps back. He has to win, okay? Just like Andy Ruiz does. These are must-win fights for these guys who are legitimate contenders and former champions. These fights shouldn't be happening, okay? And they definitely shouldn't be on pay-per-view on either side of the pond. Those are my final thoughts. And you know what? I like some of the fights on the undercard, but once again, they belong nowhere near pay-per-view, and they don't justify purchasing this at $50 a pop.
Hey, what you tell me about entertaining fights?
Oh, dude, all of these matchups are entertaining. They're great style matchups, but it's of no consequence. It's of no consequence. Do I care what happens and who wins with Omar Figueroa and Abel Ramos? Do I really care who wins? Look, if a matchup is void or sans any consequence, what difference does it make? If you don't care who wins, what difference does it make? Okay? Oh, but it's an entertaining matchup. Well, so what? I could pay less money to see club fights live and be entertained. Okay? I shouldn't have to spend $50 for non-consequential matchups. Sebastian Fundora versus Cota. Really? Dude, I'm sorry, but Cota has no chance. That's a terrible one-sided beatdown right there. Right? Do I care about Molina and whomever the opening bout is? No, once again, that's of no consequence. These matchups are either terribly one-sided or of little consequence. So why should I have to pay money for that? Rubbish. It's garbage and it's insulting.
And to piggyback off of that, what you said about Andy Ruiz, not only is he in phenomenal shape, he is with the best team in boxing, arguably with the best trainer in boxing, and Eddie Reynoso, working alongside Canelo Alvarez, Oscar Valdez, Ryan Garcia. Like, this is going to be a wipeout.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And once again, credit to our thanks for hanging with us, Outlaw Pugilist. He writes this. He comments this, guys. He says, Andy Ruiz will be a problem for a lot of heavyweights. AJ must be glad he's fought him twice and probably won't fight him again. Good luck to the rest of the division. They will need it. Okay, so thanks for commenting. We're going to read your next comment in just a minute after we, give you our commentary regarding Andy Ruiz and what's next for him. Because to be honest with you, I think he fights. A lot of people are talking about him fighting Deontay Wilder. No way in Hades Heyman allows that to happen. Okay? Those are his two best contenders in the heavyweight division. There's no way he pairs them against each other. No way. In my opinion, look for Andy Ruiz to face the winner of the rematch between Adam Kaunaki and Robert Helenius. Okay, because the winner of that fight is going to be the number one mandatory challenger for the WBA title. Okay? That puts him in title contention and becomes it's a title eliminator bout, right? So expect Andy Ruiz to go that route. Deontay Wilder. And here's another comment by our brother, Outlaw Pugilist, right? He goes, quote, have you guys seen Deontay Wilder's new training footage with Malik Scott? What do you think? Okay, well, to be honest, we're gonna tell you what we think. Go ahead, KingRy. Have your shot, brother.
Look, I'm not gonna sit up here and lie and say that the footage that they put out, Deontay Wilder didn't look nice hitting the mitts, But this is my thing right here. I have no faith in a guy in Malik Scott, who took a dive against me, and now you're going to train me. That's ridiculous.
You know what, though, brother? They've always been very good friends, right? They've been very good friends for a long time, and Malik has been in their camp for the past half decade or so, since he's retired, right? Look, I'll say this. Deontay Wilder, yeah, he looked pretty good in the midst, but it's funny. One thing you have to consider, he doesn't have to worry about anything coming back when he's working mitts. Okay? Malik Scott's not going to hit him back. How is his confidence level going to be? Is he going to be gun shy at the prospect of someone punching him back or countering him? Okay? You don't know anything by watching someone work the mitts. Just like when you see someone crack the heavy bag. Wow, do you see the way he rips that heavy bag? Yeah, but the heavy bag doesn't punch back. Okay? Okay, we have no idea how mentally fragile or how confident Deontay Wilder is right now. And we won't know until we see him in the ring with a genuine threat or a genuine puncher. With someone who's actually going to fight back, right?
But Joseph, let me ask you a question. Realistically, at the state, and I agree with you, everything that you're saying about him now, but realistically at the state, what is the type of opponent that we put Deontay Wilder in there with right now, knowing his state, knowing everything that he's been through, the accusations and where he at right now? What is a realistic opponent for him to come back against?
It depends on a couple of things, right? Depends on a couple of things. One, well, this is the most important thing that's going to determine his next opponent, right? Is how much money Deontay Wilder is currently demanding. If he's going to stick to his guns and demand $10 million for his next fight, then you know what? Heyman might as well say, okay, buddy, sink or swim then. We're going to put you in the ring with Andy Ruiz next. Because you got to earn that money. If you want to make that kind of money, you don't deserve it by fighting someone like Charles Martin. No offense to Prince Charles Martin. He's a great guy and a very good fighter. But he's not at that level. Let's just be honest, guys. And Deontay Wilder is not going to deserve or merit a $10 million payday for a fight opposite Charles Martin. If you're Al Heyman, and if Deontay Wilder is dumb enough to say, you know what, I got paid $25 million in my last fight. I'm the biggest heavyweight draw that you have. So guess what? I'm going to get $10 million in my next fight, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So Heyman then has a choice. He can either keep Deontay Wilder on ice and not fight him, or he can pay him that money and stick him in tough and say, sink or swim, brother. Earn your keep. If you want to make that kind of money, you're going to have to fight for it. Then he's going to stick him in the ring with Andy Ruiz. Okay, now if Deontay Wilder is smart, though, and says, okay, I understand that there's not enough money. That's like I can't justify a $10 million payday fighting a guy like Charles Martin. So guess what? I'm going to do it for $2 or $3 million, and I'm going to face someone like Charles Martin. Guess what? That is a great fight for him to see where exactly he is mentally and physically. And if he's smart, he'll take less money to put that fight together just to get back in the ring and to get his confidence level up, because that's what he needs.
But when I like that matchup for Deontay Wilder, but I even like that matchup even more for Andy Ruiz next, just because of the backstory on it, with the situation that Ruiz had with his former trainer and Manny Robles. And
Manny Robles,
also, I'm not saying that I favor Charles Martin to beat Deontay Wilder or Andy Ruiz. I don't know how the matchups will go. But since I've been watching Charles Martin, and since he's been with Manny Robles, he have gotten a lot better. And I think that Charles Martin versus Ruiz after this fight, but realistically, I know it's not going to happen because of the Kaunaki fight and the WBA thing. But I just thought that was a better fight.
You know what? Aside from that, there is very little intrigue because Charles Martin, as smart as he is and as good of a guy as he is, and Charles Martin, he's a very good dude. And he's a very likable guy, but unfortunately, his lack of speed, he can't match. He's not on the same level as Wilder or Ruiz. He'll get taken apart, okay? His only chance is to want to sit in the pocket and trade with these guys. Okay, rule of thumb, guys, X's and O's of boxing. It's something that Emmanuel Stewart taught me, right? He's like, do you know what made JMM so fearless and so tough and so fan-friendly in the tail end of his career? Is because he understood that the only way I can beat a guy like Manny Pacquiao, who has the huge advantage in hand speed, is if I sit in the pocket and elect to trade with him, even though I know I'm going to get touched up. That's what made JMM such a superstar and such a likable fighter. Does Charles Martin have those same level of cojones? Because that's the only chance he has. Okay? Training 101, strategy 101. If your opponent has the huge advantage in hand speed, you have no choice but to trade with him. Okay? Think about what kind of balls and confidence that takes. You're asking a guy like Charles Martin, hey, if you really want to win this fight, you're going to have to sit and trade with these guys. Two of the hardest punchers in the division. Is Charles Martin, is he man enough for that? Is he good enough for that? Does he have the chin to take that kind of risk? And if you go back and look at his fight against Anthony Joshua, no, he doesn't have that kind of chin. This is an unlevel. This is an uneven matchup. This is a one-sided matchup. Charles Martin is a good guy and a very good fighter, but he's not on that level. That's why these matchups make sense. That's why that matchup makes sense for Deontay Wilder. It's not on his level. And it's definitely not worth $10 million.
But I don't know what level, and I would say more towards Ruiz. I would give Ruiz more of the edge of beating Charles Martin than I would Deontay Wilder, because
dude, both guys would wipe up the floor with Charles Martin. Deontay,
I don't know. I mean,
I do. There's such a huge disparity in athleticism, speed, and power. Charles Martin, all he has is power. When you're facing a guy with the huge advantage in speed and reflexes, okay, you have no choice. And if you don't have a good chin, which he really doesn't, go back and look at the Anthony Joshua fight. If you don't have a good chin, you have really no chance, because your only chance to win is to sit in the pocket and trade. Okay, every time they open up, you've got to let your hands go. That means you're going to be susceptible to some incoming. And unless your chin can physically endure the incoming from someone like Deontay Wilder or Andy Ruiz, that means you have no chance. No chance whatsoever.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I just go back to what you stated about how Deontay Wilder, he looked good hitting the mitts, but how is he going to look when you hit him back, you know? And the way Deontay Wilder reacted to his loss against Tyson Fury, the mental state that he was in, and I'm with you. I would favor Deontay Wilder to beat Charles Martin, absolutely. But I give Charles Martin an admirable chance, because I don't know the Deontay Wilder that we're going to get whenever he stepped back into the ring.
That is very true. And that's why the Charles Martin matchup makes sense for Deontay Wilder at this time. Okay, this is why the prospect of him fighting a very confident Tyson Fury makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. And my big question to all Wilder fans is, why are you guys so anxious to see your boy get his ass whooped again? Because that's what would happen, guys, in a third fight. Okay? Deontay Wilder has a puncher's chance. But Fury, okay, he's already shown that he can get the better of those exchanges. Okay? Why are you guys so anxious to see that? Okay, do you want to see your boy retired? Do you want to see the King of Wakanda get stretched? Okay, look, quit demanding that third fight, because it's not going to happen, one. And two, if you care about your boy, have him get a more realistic matchup, like one against Charles Martin, right?
I wouldn't even put him in there against Charles Martin, because I don't know what Deontay Wilder is right now. I'm not going to.
That's right. But look,
I'm worried about the guy. I don't know what his mind frame.
You're absolutely right. He should be right there beside Ryan Garcia. Okay. Look, you have to stick him in against someone with some intrigue, and is someone who's going to provide some kind of resistance, because he wants too much damn money. Okay, if he's going to be asking for $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million, then it's going to have to be against someone who's going to provide some kind of resistance. You can't get a tune-up against a no-hoper and demand that kind of money. It just isn't going to happen. It just doesn't make sense.
That's true.
So what something has to give. Either you take a tune-up for your minimal payday, or you've got to fight someone with a pulse. Take your pick, Deontay. And that's it.
I'm with you on that. I think he's going to have to make a decision. And I think the smart decision with him is to think about his career and think about where he at. I think he needs to take a hell of a pay cut,
Yep.
and take on minimal
You're
The
right.
takeoff leaderboard.
There's something that one of our someone who's joining us today. His name is Truth Son. Right. Shout out to you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. This is his comment. I never bought anything Wilder myself. From the beginning, when he was laid out by Romanoff in the amateurs, I give Martin a good chance in a fair fight. Give him Wilder versus Stiverne 3. Oh, boy. Look, man. Berman Stiverne, the old man who's should be put out to pasture and has no business in the professional ring any longer. Once again, if or financially, if you're going to ask for those kinds of dollars, Deontay, then you can't be put in a gimme fight against a no-hoper like Berman Stiverne. Thanks for your comment, though, brother. Oh, Chingao. See, that's the problem, guys. These guys want too much damn money for light touches. I'm sorry, but there's going to come a time if boxing hopes to get back to better health and a much better situation for the health of the sport. You guys are going to have to realize that you can't be expecting millions for any more soft touches. Like, look at Devin Haney, for instance. Does he deserve $3 million when he doesn't sell tickets? He's not a huge ratings draw, and he's fighting an old man like Jorge Linares. Does he deserve $3 million for that?
Nope.
Do
but
you guys,
Eddie Hearn got to do what he got to do, though. And he's willing to do that. That's why I respect Eddie Hearn.
Why? Why is he willing to do that? Devin Haney is not a huge ratings draw. He's not a big, he's not a box office attraction. Why?
He hoping for the future. He putting his investment now.
He's investing money in the future. All the while, he's inflating their purses. How much do you think then Devin Haney is going to expect to fight a guy like Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia? How much do you think he's going to expect for that?
I agree.
That's the problem. That's the problem with boxing guys.
That's the problem.
It's like, look, everything should be on the back end. I know DAZN is different because it's not a pay-per-view platform, right? But $3 million, dude, is there anyone on the mainstream and casual level who's going to buy a subscription on DAZN for that fight? Who watches it outside of the boxing diehard community?
Man, look, Joseph, I promise.
It doesn't even move the needle in terms of subscriptions, right? So why pay this guy $3 million? That's the problem with boxing.
Ain't nobody talking about Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares. No, nobody. This is probably the first mention of Devin Haney and Linares in probably about 2 weeks. Like, no one is talking about that fight. No one.
Yep. Look. And I agree. And Truth Son, he gives his comment, right? Same with Outlaw Pugilists. They understand. Once again, guys who tune in our show, they understand the reality. Okay. Outlaw Pugilist says this is why UFC is killing boxing right now. Yes, agreed. Truth Son says we need good fights in boxing, not Tank versus new YouTuber or these less than mediocre fights sold as great. Agreed with all points, right? Here's the problem, though, guys. And we talked about this last week. Here's the biggest problem in boxing. In my opinion, the biggest problem in boxing. Diehard boxing fans have already grown accustomed to illegally streaming these events. Where even if you put together great matchups like Demetrius Andrade versus Jamal Charlo, that is a great A++ matchup. But guess what? No one outside of the boxing diehard community even knows that this is a great matchup and will have zero interest to that demographic. So let me ask you, do these boxing diehards, the ones that have grown accustomed to illegally streaming every event, do they suddenly grow a conscience and say, you know what, this is a great matchup. I'm going to actually spend money on this now. I'm not going to stream this one illegally because this is a great fight. How many diehards actually use that mentality?
But you know what, though? They forced us diehards people to illegally stream it.
No. Look, you know what? Well, you know what, KingRy? I'm sorry. That's unfair of me. You're right. You're right. You know what? You do.
Because let me give you an example, though. Because it's like
no, you're absolutely right.
When Floyd Mayweather came back from boxing, he came back when he took that 2-year layoff. He came back and he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and they put that on pay-per-view. And we knew, even though Juan Manuel Marquez is a great fighter, we knew Floyd was gonna wipe him out, bro. Like when Floyd also he gave us on pay-per-view against Robert the Ghost Guerrero. We knew he was gonna wipe him out. Them are the type of matchups that they get, even though Floyd is an all-time great. And like I said, I can't blame it on him, but he is a part. He gets a small being a part of the problem. But they forced the diehard fans around the world to start illegal streaming these matchups. Like, think about it. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. It took 5 years to get made. Look at Terence Crawford and Errol Spence now, Joseph. You know, Terence Crawford been in the welterweight since June 2018.
Yeah, I know, but here's the reason.
Let me say this. People want to talk about better win. Okay, so hold up. And I want your opinion on this, and I want everybody who comment opinion on this. I think Terence Crawford got the best win in the welterweight division, right? And I'm gonna tell you this and why. Because I look at Manny Pacquiao as being an all-time great, right? Jeff Horn, whether you thought he beat him or not, Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao. Terence Crawford beat Jeff Horn. Manny Pacquiao came back to show you how great he was and beat a unified champion in Keith Thurman. You know, so if anybody could name me a welterweight who has a better win on their resume than Terence Crawford with a guy who was in the
you know what, KingRy, with all due respect, brother, I really don't understand what that has to do with what we're talking about. Look, let me explain something, guys. When you brought up Floyd Mayweather versus Juan Manuel Marquez, right? On pay-per-view. You talk about Robert the Ghost Guerrero versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. on pay-per-view. Okay, those two fighters, those two quote-unquote opponents for Floyd Mayweather Jr., those are proven champions. Those are multi-division world champions. They're not Mario Barrios. Like, those are great matchups compared to the bullshit we're getting now. Like, those are great matchups compared to what we're being offered now.
No, Joseph. I know they're great matchups, but Floyd Mayweather versus Juan Manuel Marquez is a wipeout. Whether if Marquez was a great champion or not.
Look. KingRy.
0% chance of winning that
no,
fight.
that's not true. Look, you and I both knew that was a one-sided fight because Juan Manuel Marquez is not an effective aggressor. Right? We both knew that. But the fans didn't realize that. Okay? There was a lot of intrigue. Floyd Mayweather coming off of a year layoff. Right? There was a lot of intrigue attached to that fight. Juan Manuel Marquez coming off of a great dramatic victory over Juan Diaz. There was a lot of intrigue attached to that. Tell me.
He moved up. He was a little guy moving up.
So what? He was strong enough to knock the fuck out of Pac-Man?
Yeah, I know, but that's
Mayweather, dude. Joe. Look. I understand this. It's two different style matchups. Yeah, gotcha. But my point is, that was a legitimate world champion and an elite level fighter. Okay? That is nothing like Gervonta Davis versus Mario Barrios for more money.
I'm just saying that we knew it was a wipeout.
Look.
The type of matchups we got. Like this
that's right.
The reason what I was talking about is what
I know.
About illegal stream. Them are the matchups that made the people illegal stream.
You know what? I'll say this. It's not just those. It's everything. and this is how diehard boxing fans justify this garbage, right? They justify illegally streaming by saying, you know what, boxing? This is to the open letter to the powers that be. All the promoters, all the networks, all the fighters. We're illegally streaming these events because of decades, not any one fighter specifically, but for decades, you've been forcing us to pay for every single major matchup or event. If we want to watch it, you've been forcing us to pay our hard-earned money. Decade after decade after decade. Once again, pay-per-view, the platform, started, on TV. It used to be closed circuit before that, but pay-per-view was started during the Tyson era, right? Okay. So you guys, for decades, been forcing us to pay for every single major event. So now that we have the option to illegally stream it, guess what? We're going to do it. So it's not any one, I don't want to talk about any one matchup or one specific fight that led to this point, because it's an entire series of greed by the promoters, networks, and fighters that led us to this point. So what's the solution, KingRy? Arum has the right idea. Arum has the right idea. Well, I'll tell you. Arum has the right idea, and he's the only promoter who's doing this. Put fights on, put great matchups on free network TV and start justifying greater ad dollars, advertisement, and sponsorship dollars by ratings. Okay?
But yeah, that's a great idea. But the ego of these fighters and who they think they are,
something has to give.
Happen.
Something has to give. Okay? Something has to give, because these fighters are demanding way too much money, okay, in pre-fight guarantees when they have no idea how they're going to draw. It's way beyond. It goes. Hell no, dude. These guys aren't going to give anything back. Look, and that's the problem.
To give. We know he'll give. It's a few fighters who will give. Like
I can't see Terence either doing it either. Once again, as much as I love Terence Crawford, this is the same guy who said, I'm not fighting for less money. I'll sit out before I do that. He's getting a guaranteed $4 million per fight. Right? And this is what Truth Son says, right? If you want people to buy, we need good quality. Okay, you know what? And once again, that's not going to change diehard's mentality. You think they're going to miraculously or suddenly have a change of heart and want to purchase these events because it's a good matchup? No, they're not going to. They're going to.
Diehards, but it could change it could bring new fans. The good matchup could grow new fans.
Look, no, dude, how are they going to grow new fans when the fight is being obscured on the pay-per-view platform? The only way to grow new fans, and Arum knows this, this is why we're seeing Taylor versus Ramirez on regular network TV. This is why we saw Vasil Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez on regular network TV, right? This is why we're going to see Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. on regular network TV. There's a reason why we're seeing these on network TV, because he understands in order to pick up and appeal to a new demographic of fight fans, in order to attract the sport to mainstream and casual fans, you're going to have to show them the product. Let me ask you this, KingRy. If these matchups are on pay-per-view, how many mainstream and casual fans are going to see it? You've got to show them the product first.
Yeah, but these Joseph, I agree with you 100%. But these boxers are out of control. They are out of control to where they have lost the sight of if you're trying to help build the sport. I understand that boxers are their own franchises, but they're not about the sport no more. It's just a me. If I can't get this, then, well, woo. But like I say, going back with Terence Crawford, like, I can't really put no blame on him because he's been trying to make these.
Okay, well, then my attitude is then.
Money, Joseph.
That,
but he's been trying to make these fights to build.
You know what? You know what? Then make concessions financially. Then, okay. Then make concessions financially. If you really want to make these fights a reality, take less money. Do you really want to fight?
I agree.
Okay. Well, then you know what? Put your money where your mouth is. That's my look. Because something's got to give. Like, I'm to the point where I'm like, screw it. Because what this reminds me of is when all the Major League Baseball players decided to strike because they felt where they weren't making enough money. They weren't making a large enough percentage of the gross proceeds, right? And I'm like, screw these guys. We're already paying X amount of dollars for every ticket. They're already receiving so much money from the networks, and they want more. Screw them. I'll move on to another sport. And that's basically what's happened. So my attitude to these fighters are, screw them. Let's watch the young, hungry fighters who actually want to fight and who don't want to gouge the consumer. Let's watch guys like Estrada versus Chocolatito Gonzalez. Those guys are willing to put it all, leave it all in the ring, and not try to gouge the consumer. Okay, let's focus our attention on those guys then. Let's focus our attention on Taylor versus Ramirez. And screw these prima donnas who want too much money. To be honest with you, I couldn't care less what Spence or Crawford do from this point forward. I don't care anymore. Okay, I'm going to focus my attention on guys who don't want to screw the consumer out of their money. I'm sick and dude, these guys remind me of these NFL players, NBA players, MLB players who went on strike all those years ago. Screw them. If you think that you're not making enough money, already making millions, if you don't think that you're still making enough money, screw you. Let's replace you with someone who's not trying to gouge the consumer. So, KingRy, we're already 2 hours in, brother, almost. We're going to exit in about 3 minutes. So your parting shots for our listening audience today.
Oh, no, man. Just shout out to everybody, man, who tuned in. Shout out to everybody who was in the chat. I'm sorry I wasn't able to see our comments. I'm going to definitely make sure when I watch the replay on this, I'm able to comment on all y'all comments. I just appreciate everybody on War Week Radio who tune in and day out. Y'all make sure y'all go on FightSaga.com to make sure y'all catch all the latest articles that's going on. When I tell you the platform of Fight Saga, there's none other like it when it comes to boxing news that generates. It's one of a kind. So everybody, y'all make sure y'all go to FightSaga.com and check that out. And shout out to Joseph Herron, one of the best in the business. When I tell you he one of the best, I mean that.
KingRy, likewise, my friend. And please educate us once again on where we can find you every Thursday night, brother.
Oh, yeah, y'all make sure y'all find me on RTBA Boxing Talk on Facebook because I'm going to be live doing my new radio show, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's called Mr. RTBA Boxing. You know, we must address the BS on my show, and I promise you we're going to be addressing a lot of BS that's going on. A lot of the topics we talked about today we will be discussing on the show Thursday night. So y'all make sure y'all follow me at KingRy, K-A-R-R-A-Y, Bradshaw. Go follow my group on Facebook, RTBA Boxing Talk. Follow me on Instagram, MR_RTBA. Thank you.
God bless you, brother. Thank you guys for tuning in. And don't forget to visit KingRy this Thursday evening on Fishbowl Radio. And yours truly may even call in to chat for a couple minutes with Mr. KingRy Bradshaw. But God bless all of you guys. You guys have a wonderful week. And KingRy, always a pleasure to share the air with you, my friend. God bless you, brother. Guys, everyone have a great Wednesday, guys. And we'll talk to you once again. And thanks for tuning in. God bless all of you.